What's going on, everybody? Welcome to Friday's edition of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. And as you could tell from the title, we have finally did the collaboration with Shawn over at GUINEY'S Sports Pod. And let me tell you, our collaboration was so fun. It was so exciting, and it was honestly thrilling because to able to have someone else to talk to sports about was riveting. We were able to go back and forth, agree on a bunch of stuff, disagree on a bunch of stuff, just have a natural, general debate, discussion, conversation, all that good stuff about sports. Basically, what Murph's Boston Sports Talks embodies, and we were able to do that with another Boston sports podcast. Just as a quick little note on the side, we did have a massive long recording, which we didn't really plan on, but that's just kind of how it happened. When you're talking about sports, whether it's Boston or just sports in general, you kind of happen to go, get sidetracked a little bit, having conversations here and there, and next thing you know, you're recording for almost 4 hours. So that was us, and in that case, we're going to be splitting up our recording into two episodes, part one and part two. Part one will obviously be airing right now, which you're listening to, and part two will be aired on Monday, so you can kind of have a nice little back-to-back action for our podcast collab. Hopefully you can enjoy both parts. Hopefully you can enjoy everything that Shawn and I put work into and enjoy. Without further ado, though, I don't want to waste any more time. Here is Shawn and I for our episode. Let's go.
What is up, guys? My name is Shawn Guiney. I'm the host of Guiney Sports Pod. Obviously, if you're listening on my show, you know me. With me also is a buddy of mine, James Murphy.
How we doing?
Welcome.
Thank you so much.
You host your show, Murphy's Boston Sports Pod, or Boston Sports Talk.
Yes, Murph's Boston Sports Talk. You can find me on all major listening platforms, Spotify, Google, Amazon, Apple, all the good stuff. And it is a pleasure to finally be doing this collab with you. It's been a little bit in the making, so it's finally relieving and rewarding to have linked up for this. So let's get it going.
Definitely. Yeah. We were supposed to record a couple of weeks ago. Things happened. We couldn't, but we're now back today. A little sickness on my part, but nothing to be worried about. But yeah, now we're good. Now we're gonna get going. Like I just told you before we started the show, it's kind of good that we're starting now because Patriots free agency has gotten underway and they made a bunch of splashes, a bunch of moves, some of which are surprising, but
it's been nuts.
It's been nuts. And I mean, I'm looking forward to this next season. I got some kind of high expectations. I mean, they'll probably come back down to a little to earth once the season gets a little closer. But yeah, I mean, I'm already looking forward to next season.
Yeah, I next season is going to be very interesting because this is like the first time we've really seen Bill try to buy a championship team. And oftentimes you don't really see that being successful, maybe in baseball because they don't have a salary cap, but at least in the salary cap sports, you really don't see that all too well. And as much as the Patriots are being hyped up this year, we do have to be conscious of the fact that none of these guys have played together except, who the Patriots are re-signing this offseason. So all these players, Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne, the offensive players, they never played with each other, nor have they played with Cam Newton. So there's going to be a lot of growing pains for that offense, probably within the first 4 games or a month. I wouldn't be surprised if they're 2-2 leaving September. I really wouldn't. But after that, you could see them probably take off because I think that defense is going to be very good this year. And I'm a big fan of defense wins championships, but that offense, though, once they get connected and going, I really feel like, and I can really see them take off.
Yeah, we'll get into it a little more later on in the show. But honestly, let's just talk about ourselves quickly. So
absolutely.
So why don't you start?
Sure.
Tell a little about yourself for my listeners.
For your listeners. All right. So like I introduced myself, I am James Murphy, aka Murph. I am the host of Murph's Boston Sports Talk. Drop new episodes weekly on Monday, Wednesdays, and Fridays. Boston sports has been a thing of mine ever since I was a kid, to be honest, just like Shawn as well. It's just kind of funny how gravitating sports can be for people, especially where we were once strangers, but now, we're getting closer and closer through a thing called sports. And that's one of the beauties of it. And that's why I love sports so much. Ton of friends made through sports. And I really think sports has been a really great segue for me. And that's kind of why I wanted to talk about it and, kind of get my podcast up and running. It's been 2 or so months now, and I've loved every second of it. And I'm sure you know and remember that feeling too when you started yours a while back, that it can be challenging, it can be tough, but it's
Definitely.
definitely rewarding and it's definitely fun all the way through. And I'm definitely enjoying the process. And hopefully, if your listeners decide to, give mine a listen, I'll definitely be happy to have them on. And, hopefully they can give a little feedback, see what they think of it. And that's basically what my podcast is all about. It's non-biased, it's non-scripted, and it's just to generate discussion, generate conversation, because that's what sports is all about, is talking about them.
Yeah,
So
just talking about sports.
exactly. Exactly. And obviously, this will be on my show as well, Shawn. So if you would do me the pleasure of explaining yourself to my listeners, that would be much appreciated so they can find out a little bit about you.
Yeah, it's absolutely my pleasure. So yeah, my name is Shawn Guiney. I'm a freshman in college. So a little added detail. I've been doing my show, Guiney Sports Pod, for almost a year and a half. I started it in November 2019 when I was a senior in high school. Did that for a couple months, and then Corona hit. Couldn't get any episodes out, which sucked because it was a 4 months break that just really killed my show. But now we came back, had some great episodes, and now I'm in college. I got a radio station at the school I go to, and I do a radio show called Guiney Sports Pod Radio. Uh, it's an hour long, 4 days a week with my buddy Josh. Uh, and I take those episodes and make them the podcast. So I release twice a week, Tuesday and Thursday. The Tuesday episodes are the Monday and Tuesday recordings combined into one, and the Thursday episodes are the Wednesday and Thursday broadcasts combined into one. But before that, it was just me. I brought in a bunch of my buddies from my hometown. We recorded episodes and got them all out. And it's a lot of fun. Like you mentioned, you've been doing it for what, 2 months?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Around there.
Yes. Yeah. And I remember like my first 2 months of getting into it, it was a lot of fun. A lot of fun. It was also a lot of work because I was balancing school. I'm still balancing school.
It's tough.
Yeah, it's tough. But no, the reward is when you finish editing the episode and you see it pop up on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and you can find my show on those platforms. You can find them everywhere. You can find it everywhere on wherever you get your podcast. That reward when you see it pop up there is always satisfactory. It gives you a good feeling. And like you mentioned, sports, just being around sports all your life, that's the same thing for me. I grew up big sports family. The first month of my life is when the championships started pouring in.
You youngin'.
So, yeah.
You youngling.
I like to think that I was lucky charm that brought in all these championships for Boston teams. Just growing up around sports, really getting into sports when I was like 10 years old, watching the Patriots in the Super Bowl against the Giants, 2011. So that was 10 years ago. That was what really got me into sports. Football was my first love. I love football. It was my dream to be a running back in the NFL. But my freshman year of high school, a couple practices into the season, hurt my neck. That was the end of the career. Yeah. So it would hurt to see that dream die. But not too long after, I discovered sports broadcasting, did some play-by-play for the TV station that I used to work, or I kind of still intern at. And now my new dream is to the podcast, Guiney Sports Pod, the soon-to-be #1 sports podcast in the world. Like I start off every episode saying, that's going to be a thing someday. And who knows? Maybe you'll be number 2 or you'll be number 1, James. So maybe. But
I only hope.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's a little bit about me, a little bit about my show. Again, check me out. It's available, Guiney Sports Pod. It's available everywhere you get your podcasts. Yeah, that's just a little bit about me.
I love the fact that, I don't love the fact, but, it's unfortunate that you had to take time off because of COVID, and obviously a bunch of people, had to take time off some way, somehow through work or whatever. And unfortunately, a lot of people weren't able to go back to that, but, you were fortunate enough to go back to the podcast and just keep grinding away at each and every episode that you're doing, kind of like you never missed a beat. And that just shows resiliency, determination to really, pursue that passion of wanting to become the #1 podcast in the world for sports. And if you didn't have that mindset or that determination, you could have just fizzled away. But, your passion and your love for sports is just, through the roof and too strong to let it fizzle away. And
Exactly.
that just says something about your character and, like I said, your resiliency.
Exactly. Yeah. It's a lot of fun. I enjoy what I'm doing. I knew I wanted a career in the sports world. So I was gonna get into like play-by-play broadcasting, like radio shows. And a friend one day just said I should start a sports podcast, and I did. Now I got Kind Sports Pod going. It's a lot of fun. I can do it it's like I treat it like a business.
You
Like,
have to. You
yeah,
have to.
there's so many like facets that go into it, and it's a lot of fun. It's always fun to get an episode done, do a little side project of marketing the show.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever those projects get finished, it's always so much fun, and yeah, I have a lot of fun doing it. I'm looking forward to what the next years have for me with the show.
Absolutely. And you got to keep it like, you got to have that mindset like it's a business, like it's a job, because, to us it is, and it is, and we want it to be. So if we didn't have that mindset mentality, we would just, not take it seriously. And without taking it seriously, who knows what would happen from it. But, wanting to take it so seriously, making it, our dream, and making it our job, a business, a profession for us, kind of really helps spin those gears and, push the podcasts, I should say, forward for us.
Exactly. Yeah. So it is a lot of work. Some nights I wish I could get to it, but I got schoolwork to do, which
School comes
sucks, but
first. School comes
a little,
first.
yeah, sometimes school comes first, but yeah, it's a lot of work, but that work is always rewarding, and that big reward at the end of sponsorships, just downloads, millions of downloads. How about that? That reward is going to be worth it once you get there. So yeah, it's a lot of fun, and we'll probably do more of these down the road, more collaboration, just because why
Absolutely.
not?
I
Yeah,
know
so
when we were having our initial meeting, we kind of talked about revisiting it and kind of, like a few months from now, maybe like, towards the end of summer, and just kind of check in to see how the Red Sox are doing,
yeah,
completely the Patriots off season, where the Celtics and Bruins finished up. Obviously at that time, we'll be looking forward to those new seasons for 21-22. So absolutely, no matter what, we have to come back to it. No matter what we talk about, the discussions, the debates, fights we get into, we're going to have to revisit this, a few months from now, and just to kind of defend our takes and see if our takes were right or wrong.
yeah, exactly. So look for that down the road. But let's just jump right into it right now with this episode. So there's been a lot going on around the world, or not really around the world, but around Boston sports. The team that I hate the most, the most hated team in my life of Boston sports, is this year's Boston Celtics. This team drives me fucking insane.
I've ranted
Insane.
about this team way too many times than I would like to have, and I've ranted about them for the wrong reasons. I would love to rant about how good they're playing and how good the players are developing, and all these great wins that they have, but it's just so hard to. You're 40 games into it now, and you're treading water, desperately treading water. Like,
Yeah.
how much more do whether it's podcasters, reporters, media people, have to say about this team? It's not good enough. You're not good enough. You're losing to the Wizards. You're losing to
You lose to the Cavaliers.
The Cavaliers last night. You lose to these bum ass teams that you should easily win. You don't have to blow them out. I'm not saying you have to blow them out, but you should at least be able to handle your business, whether you're home or away. And time after time, they can't do it. They can't do it.
It's so inconsistent. It's insane. And for them to be 20-20 at this point in the season, they're still third in the East. Actually, no, they're third in the Atlantic. So forget everything I just said. They're seventh in the East.
They're 7.5 games. The thing is,
you're tied with the Hawks. You're behind the Hornets. You're a game ahead of the Knicks. I mean, you're too good of a team to not be this bad. Like, you should be top 3 in the East. I said before, I predicted before the season started that they would be around the 6 or 7 seed, but for the complete opposite reasons of where they're at right now.
Yeah, so you made that projection with the East improving on themselves. Instead, it seems like they're just kind of still muddling themselves, but it's the Celtics who have decreased in their performance, and they clearly suck. They're closer to being out of the playoffs than they are to the 3rd seed or even the 4th seed. It's just so frustrating because obviously Boston sports fans that we are, We want all of our teams to win every single year, and we won't accept anything else. This year, it just doesn't look it. I mean, if the season was stopped today, you're playing the Nets in the first round. You're probably going to get swept. Let's just be honest.
Badly.
Terribly swept. And Kyrie's just going to be laughing in your face, but Danny Ainge...
As he should. As much as I hate Kyrie Irving, he should.
Oh, absolutely. He finessed his way out of Boston. He shot himself out, and now he's on the Nets team where it looks like he's pretty happy and looks like they're doing okay. I was kind of against that James Harden trade, but they're proving me wrong there, and they're playing well. They're tied for first. Meanwhile, the Celtics, you would think that they'd have superstars in Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, but as good and young as they are, they're not enough. They're not enough, and Danny Ainge needs to address this immediately and at least make some noise. Get to the 4th seed at least, because it feels like the 3rd seed is probably out of the question now with only 16 or so games left. They have to do something.
You're a game and a half behind the Heat, who are the 4th seed, and you're the 7th seed. So, I mean, like I said this a couple weeks ago, Danny Ainge has to make a move before it's too late. But I mean, my mind has shifted, and I'd say really just forget this season. Like first off, you're absolutely not going to make the finals, the NBA finals.
Absolutely.
You're more than likely not going to make it to the Eastern finals. And depending on your first round matchup, you may not make the quarterfinals. So I just say, I've said before, like, really save the Gordon Hayward TPE for the offseason when it's worst and most. This season, I mean, just trade away probably their least performing players like Jeff Teague, Tristan Thompson. Get rid of those guys, bring in some value, and maybe that value will be like a lot of draft picks or a guy who'll be here for this season and next season.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to invest much into this team this season, so I'm really checked out. Like, they're not going to change my mind. I don't expect them to turn around and go on this massive like winning streak, but
they can't do it.
No, they're too inconsistent, and this season is pretty much lost cause to me.
And it started off the season so good. Like the first 10 to 12 games, they were really good. They were showing themselves, one of the top 3 teams in the East. Really could have made some noise, and our opinions were completely different about this team way back in the season. And then just slowly but surely, they just lose and then lose and just fell apart. They would surprise you with a weird win, like a win against the Clippers in LA. And like, what? Like, but you can't beat the Cavaliers. You can't beat the Wizards, the Pistons and whatnot, but you beat the Clippers in LA. I completely agree with what you're saying about just kind of folding in and packing in for next season, as they should. I wouldn't be surprised if they do, nor would I be surprised if they don't. But just if they don't do anything at the trade deadline, that's just them, punting on the rest of the season. They're just folding, calling it in. Might as well just tank and try to get in the lottery at that point.
Yeah.
If they do go out and make a move, it's going to show us that they are going to try and they're going to be serious about this season. But realistically, like you said, they're 1.5 games behind the Heat for the 4th spot. That's as probably high as they're going to get. Then they're going to be playing the Heat. Say the standings stay roughly the same. They're probably going to play the Heat in the first round. And I don't know about you, the Heat are a much better team than the Celtics, roster-wise, and they'll probably beat you.
I thought the Heat were going to have a bounce step back year. Mm-hmm. I didn't expect the Heat to be this good. They're not even that good of a team, but they're much better than the Celtics, and it's a little surprising to me. I mean, the whole East is surprising to me. Mm-hmm. I mean, I did not expect the Sixers to be in first place this late in the season. I didn't expect the Raptors to be out of the playoff picture this late in the season.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't expect the Celtics to be where they're at right now. The whole East is not what I was expecting this late in the season, but I mean, it's a game. Anything can happen at all, and yeah. But you just mentioned how the Celtics started off really well to start the season.
Yep.
And so it reminds me of a point that I brought up a couple weeks ago on the podcast. So, for those of you who do not know me, I'm a big Michigan State fan. Michigan State football, Michigan State basketball. Yeah, you're gonna like this. You're gonna like this. I told him before the show about Michigan State and me. So, Michigan State basketball. They started the season 8-1. They were flying high. They were top 3 in the country. Then everything just fell apart. They just barely made the tournament. They're in the first four. Don't get me started on them playing in the first four because they shouldn't be. But that's
UCLA.
shut up, dude. They're going to the Sweet 16. They're going to the Sweet 16. I predicted that. But yeah, they just completely fell apart. They couldn't garner back-to-back wins, just like the Celtics. And just like the Celtics, they started off the season really strong, and then they fell apart. And I forget the actual reason why I brought this up, but back then, but it showed to me, actually, no. So resetting a little bit, the Spartans, they got together. They put together 3 top 5 wins in 4 games against some of the best teams in the Big Ten, who are all likely Final Four candidates this March Madness. Michigan State had 3 of those wins. They got hot late in the season. So it inspired some confidence in me that things can just be quickly turned around for a basketball team. And who knows? I would not. So in saying everything I just said about the Celtics, I wouldn't be surprised if they turn it around and they get hot and they continue staying hot for a number of weeks and it lasts into the playoffs. And who knows? Who knows what happened there? Because they're a good team. They have championship caliber players in Tatum and Brown. And they made it to the East Finals before with Brad Stevens. I wouldn't be surprised if they turn around to get far in the playoffs. But I mean, I'm just so pissed off at them this season. Like, I don't expect it at all.
I don't either, and it's very disgusting. And like
that's a great word to describe it. Disgusting.
They're the 7th seed, and you would think, let's just look at the Western Conference real quick. The 7th seed is 7 games out of first place, and we just want the Celtics to shoot for 4th. That's only 2.5 games back. So the Celtics aren't completely out of the neck of the woods, because to get to the 4th seed, they're only a game and a half back. But we're talking like that they're 15 games out of the 4th seed. It's there. It's within reach. If they get a couple games and they win a couple games and a couple teams lose a couple games, they're right back into it. But even if they get to the 4th seed, are they even a legitimate 4th seed? Now, I love your, high expectations for Michigan State. I have the same about Georgia Tech. I'm not going to go get into it because they're probably not even going to beat Illinois in the second round. But do you have more
first round?
Okay, let's.
You're not your best player.
Whatever. You know what? Childhood favorite team. I have to be a little, biased with them.
It's understandable.
Yeah. So do you have more faith in the Celtics of winning the first round of the playoffs, regardless of, say they get the 4th seed and they play the Heat in the first round? Do you have more confidence in the Celtics winning that series against the Heat in the first round, or Michigan State making it to the Elite 8?
That's a good question. It's a strong sides. But to be honest, like from what I've seen from the Celtics this season, the first round matchup will likely go 7 games, and they'll just completely fall apart in Game 7.
Yeah.
So I'd take Michigan State over the Celtics.
The Celtics would give you a little optimism because they would be down 3-2 in Game 6, and they would probably win Game 6 very convincingly and very nicely to give you hope for Game 7. But then, like you said, they would just choke it away. I mean, they did it last year. Yeah. It's just carbon copy. And I mean, especially if the Celtics don't do anything. Let's just say they don't make any moves. Like I said earlier, if they don't make any moves, it's basically telling me that they're checked out. If they do make moves, whether they use the TPE, whether they use some draft picks or players on their bench to make a move, that gives me a little hope. That gives me a little optimism, regardless who they bring in. They're making the effort for it. Obviously, in college basketball, you really can't trade. Obviously, you just have to recruit and hope for the best that way. But Michigan State was able to turn around, like you said. They played very well, hit a little lull, but now they're playing very good. And yes, as much as I joked about Michigan State with you, they could make it to the Sweet 16. Absolutely. In March Madness, anybody can make it to the Sweet 16 or the Elite 8. We've seen it time and time again, double-digit seeds make it far. The Celtics, though, NBA is just way too different. And when they have the luxury to go out and make a move, whether it's free agency, trading, whatever, and college basketball doesn't have that, it gives me less optimism for the Celtics because they have all these luxuries. And even if they do or they don't, I just feel like college basketball is a much different game. And I feel like that Michigan State, going back to my original question, has a better chance making it that far than the Celtics do, because the East is different this year. If you're looking at the playoff teams right now, a lot of these teams do a lot of things better than the Celtics right now, regardless of the Celtics' current roster. I mean, look at the Hawks. They're young, they're hungry, they can shoot the ball, and they can, play.
They fired their coach 2 weeks ago, and you had the same record as them.
That's like that makes no sense. The Hawks should be buried in the Eastern Conference, but they're in it. I mean, I'm not going to say they're going to make some noise in the playoffs, but they're there. They're ahead of you currently by way of, I don't know, probably a tiebreaker. They've won 6 straight games. Meanwhile, you've lost 2 straight games. Those 2 games could have you in 4th place. So it's just micromanaging the regular season. And if they have the mentality of let's just get to the playoffs, well, you're going to suck in the playoffs. You're going to suck in the playoffs.
Don't even make tank. Like I want to see them tank. I want them to tank. Just forget this season. You're not good. You're not going to compete. You're going to get blown out no matter the matchup. You're going to get blown out. So just tank. Go for Cade Cunningham, who I love at Oklahoma State.
You think they can get that low?
Why not? I mean, you got assets to trade for a top 5 pick.
Mm-hmm.
I do not expect it to happen, but it could happen. You never know with Danny Ainge.
If you can trade for a higher pick, that means the lottery balls will bounce in your favor a little bit more, and then you can maybe make some more moves that way. I could see them getting to the top 5. Obviously, you'd have to put an amazing trade package together. But right now, the Celtics are 20-20, and the Timberwolves are 9-31, who hold the current number 1 overall pick. Obviously, without calculating the lottery. If they can swing away to get a top level prospect out of college, that would be excellent for the Celtics. I mean, that kind of slows down their plan to be competitive now and be competitive moving forward, especially if they do tank and kind of quote unquote retool, because I don't think they're going to really look to rebuild, but they could look to retool, obviously. But how is that going to fit with other Celtics fans? Like, our listeners could be sitting right now and be like, we're a championship team, yo. We just got to, make a couple trades and we're right back in it. Like, it doesn't seem like that's going to happen right now.
The only way you would get a top 5 pick is if you trade Jaylen Brown or Jason Tatum.
You want to do that?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I said before the season I would trade Jaylen Brown, but he's been playing out of his mind this season that he's untouchable.
Okay.
And I mean, Tatum is Tatum, so he's untouchable also. But yeah, the only way you get a top 5 pick is if you trade one of those guys, and that's not going to happen. If that was to happen, Danny Ainge would probably be without a head within an hour.
So the trade deadline for this year is March 25th. That's roughly a week away.
A week ago.
Yeah, a week away. Do you think, now I know you want the Celtics to kind of pack it in, but do you think, if you were to bet, are the Celtics going to make a move within the next 7 days?
My facing them this season, I mean, it would be something small that just will not really affect this team at all. It would be trading. It would be, like, in all seriousness, it would be trading away Jeff Teague, Tristan Thompson, one of those guys for draft picks or something like that. Maybe even like another bench player, which you need. But yeah, it would be something minor. If big things are going to happen, which I doubt, it would be like a day before the deadline or deadline day.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think at most, I completely agree with you. A micromanage move, help another team, probably like in the West, be better. I honestly could see them, if you think back to 2016 or 17, I forget when, I think it was 16, when the Celtics traded for Isaiah Thomas. At that time, he was nobody. He was a nice little lefty who could score and could shoot. No one knew he was going to turn into the star player that he did for the Celtics. I would like to see them kind of make that kind of move again, where you try to make a move to get better, get a scorer, get somebody who doesn't always need the ball in their hands. Like, you want Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown to have it. Obviously, it just so happens that Isaiah Thomas blew up and became a superstar in like the course of a year. But
just a couple games.
In a couple games, right? He drops, 30, 40, 50, whatever. But like, I can see them trying to make that move and replicate that. Now, I'm not going to say it's going to work out and they're going to get the next Isaiah Thomas, but that's the kind of move I realistically see them making if they were to make a move. But the fact that they just trade Jeff Teague, Tristan Thompson, or whoever for something wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, that'd be a Danny Ainge move, and you try to make up some bullshit. Be like, oh, this guy's going to be great for our lineup moving forward.
No way. No way. Especially not this season.
No, not this season.
This season's been so bad. I mean, then I'm not expecting anything to happen again. But like, I love the emergence of Peyton Pritchard and Robert Williams.
Oh my God.
Those guys are the future. Those guys are the future. They're going to bring the first championship to the Celtics since 2008.
I love Rob. He's exactly what we need from the big. I'm so done with Daniel Tice. I'm okay with him being a bench player.
I'm still a fan of Tice.
Really, I like what he brings to the table, but you just get so much more bang for your buck with Robert Williams, at least on the offensive end. And then obviously, Time Lord can, block shots, protect the rim. Daniel Tice does that as well, but I just think Robert Williams does it a little bit better on the defensive end. You could say Daniel Tice is a better offensive player, but when you have Tatum, Brown, Kemba, I don't want to count Marcus Smart because he shouldn't have the ball at all. You don't really need that.
All right. No, I need to stop you right there. All right. So what did you just say about Marcus Smart?
He doesn't need the ball.
What do you mean? At all throughout the game?
Well, obviously he's a guard, so he's obviously going to have the ball in his hands, but he should be the fourth scorer on the team.
So you're talking offensively.
Yes.
I love Marcus Smart.
Oh, I do too. I love him defensively.
He's the third best player on your team.
Right now?
Tatum and Brown. Right now.
Okay. I won't argue with that.
I love what he brings to the table. His defensive skills especially. He puts his body out there. And he will make the play barring any injury that could come his way.
Absolutely.
Offensively, yes, he can struggle at times. This is going to go completely against my argument, but I saw a stat yesterday. This season, when in the fourth quarter, he's shooting 5% from the field, from three. Well, I think it's 1 for 14.
5%.
1 for 14, I think it is. And this was before last night's game also, so okay. I don't know if anything's changed. But yeah, he shoots 5% from the three, like in the 20s field goal wise in the fourth quarter. But other than that, he can go on streaks. He can get hot, and I think his determination to be good on offense is reason enough for him to be the third best player on the team. He's also the longest tenured Celtic.
He should be the captain.
Yeah, if they get offered captains in this league, yeah, maybe just because he's been there so long. He would bring a good veteran leadership to another team. So maybe he could be a trade piece. I'd hate to see it.
I would too. I rejected all Marcus Smart trade rumors because everything you just said, he's a phenomenal defender. First team all NBA defender, puts his body out there. He'll guard the 5, he'll guard the 1, doesn't matter. Put his body out there, whether he's healthy or injured. I mean, time after time, you see him making plays, and that's exactly what you want. When you hear the phrase bleed green, you think of Kevin Garnett. And you want to start to think of, Marcus Smart, the way that he plays defense as well. And I love having him out there. Honestly, to me, at the end of the day, he's your sixth man defensive specialist. You rotate him, in the fourth quarter, bearing matchups and if you need stops. Other than that, his shooting is just abysmal. It really is. He can get hot.
It can be abysmal at times.
He can get very hot with the best of them, and it's awesome to watch because you think, oh, Marcus Smart has finally arrived. But then next thing you know, he's going like 1 for 9 from 3, and it's like, oh, here we are, back at it.
Yeah, but I feel like all the points that he would save on the defensive end
is worth it, yeah.
Yeah, so that's why I love Marcus Smart. I'm a big fan of his, so I just wanted to get that out there while we were talking about him for that brief second. But actually, another guy that I want to talk about, it's been here for a few years now. Kemba Walker. What do you think of Kemba Walker?
Very obvious. It's so hard because he's been injured. I'm disappointed in his overall performance because I don't want to make the excuse of injuries, and he has been injured a little bit. Is that the reason why he's underperforming? Probably. I really feel like this is a make or break year for him as a Celtic, at least, because Tatum's contract is going to take into effect next year. Jaylen Brown's contract's already into effect. Marcus Smart's also, around 17 or so. Is Kemba Walker's contract really worth it? If you do go out and make another big move, whether it's over the offseason, bring in someone else, tons of names out there you could do that. you might have to move Kemba Walker in that $30+ million contract. I like him. He's a very nice guy. I've met him in person for an autograph.
Cool.
He's a swell guy, and I would hate to see him leave, but I'm not going to be playing somebody $30+ million to be your fourth best player or, be injured all the time. I'm just not going to do it. But if he can go back and be that locker room guy, someone that can maybe score 24 points a night, then I think it's worth it. But as of right now, if I was to trade him right now, I would.
Good. I'm right there with you. I wanted him gone weeks ago. I'm completely done with Kemba Walker. He is not worth the money at all. Even though so when Gordon Hayward got hurt and he came back that next season, he struggled. I supported him because if he was hurt. Mm-hmm. I kind of understand that argument, but I mean, he cannot play on back-to-back nights. He hasn't done that yet this season. I feel like at this point he should. I don't know why we're still saving him. He could have possibly helped the Celtics win that game last night against the Cavaliers.
And you would like to think that from that kind of player that they can go out and, make up the difference or make an impact in another way to put you in a position to win. But when you're not out there, then there's no, impact for you to make because you can't play on back-to-back nights. Even if you play like 20, 25 minutes, as long as you're out there contributing and being, a leader that this team needs, I think that's, plenty enough for right now, at least. I think would be, perfect enough for the Celtics to put themselves in a position to beat the Cavs. I mean, we're talking about beating the Cavaliers here. They don't have LeBron anymore. This shouldn't be a conversation. We should be on the next topic by now. But instead, the Celtics are forcing us to talk about trying to beat the Cavaliers.
Yeah. But Kemba, I mean, he's not he's not in the future anymore. Mm-hmm. He was when we first signed him, but now after the injuries, the inconsistent play this season, I mean, I want him gone now. He has to be the centerpiece of a trade that we get in return, a big guy. Another Isaiah Thomas trade, pretty much, where Kemba's Isaiah.
Who's going to want him, though? I mean, he's owed $30+ million. He's 31 or so. He's got a dinged up knee who can't play on back-to-back nights. I mean, Realistically, who's going to want him and what would you get back in return? So that makes me think that if you really do want to trade Kemba, you're going to have to probably attach another player or a draft pick even. Yeah. So the Celtics are, in a shitty situation right now with Kemba because if you trade him, you're trying to make your team better, but you're going to make your locker room pissed off because he is a good locker room influence, but
he smiles too much during games.
He's having fun. He's having fun.
Your team sucks and you're out here having a good time.
A grand old time. We're talking about trying to beat the Cavaliers here. They're having a blast.
Yeah, Kemba Walker loves to smile when the Celtics get blown out by 20 points to a team they should beat.
By 20 points.
Yeah. But yeah, in any case, I'm not a fan of Kemba anymore. I don't want him here. He should not be here. I want to see Peyton Pritchard get more starting time. I want Kemba Walker to come off the bench. I want Pritchard to get that experience because I feel like he could possibly be maybe a future point guard if he's here for another 5-6 years, maybe. Because, I mean, I was not expecting this type of play from him, so maybe I'm being a little, over realistic. Mm-hmm. But in any case, I want to see the young guy get experience, so down the road, if he has to become a starter, he can. I mean, we also got Smart, but, I mean, he's not really much of a – he's a point guard, shooting guard.
Yeah, he's not much of a ball-handling playmaker, field, court general point guard. But I do like what you're saying about Peyton Pritchard. He has, completely, taken us all by storm with the way he's played, in his first season. No one expected this at all. We expected last year's, draftees to, really take that step and be, who we want them to be. But Peyton Pritchard has made noise, every step of the way. He was injured for a little bit. And quite frankly, the Celtics missed him. They really did. And as what was like 27th, overall pick in the first round or whatever, you would think that you'd be totally fine without having Peyton Pritchard in your lineup. But he's making a noise. He's making noise. He is really becoming a player that the Celtics could rely on later in the season and definitely into next season. I definitely don't, I'm not going to argue with the fact that he could be the starting point guard for the Celtics next season. It just all going to depends what they can do with Kemba because there's no way that they're going to sit Kemba. And I think they should. I really think they should. But $30 million, you're going to have that guy out there every single night. But Peyton Pritchard, though, when he's out there, he's making more of an impact than Kemba does, and he's not smiling.
Yeah, he knows he's a rookie. He wants to prove a point. So that's exactly what he's doing. He's just taking it in stride. And again, Peyton Pritchard and Rob Williams will bring a championship to the team.
Not Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown.
No,
Robert Williams and Peyton
one of them might
Pritchard.
be there. One of them might be there, but these two guys, they're gonna be the reason. They're gonna be like Paul Pierce and Kevin Garnett.
Okay.
I'm booking that in so I can come back to it and when they win a championship.
All right, let me write it down and we'll revisit this.
Sounds good. But you also mentioned last year's draft picks. I'm kind of done with all of them. They're all bench guys. They're all tradable pieces. Grant Williams. I hate Grant Williams. Whenever I see him step on the court, my soul leaves my body.
Jared Sullinger 2.0, but worse.
But exactly, I was gonna add, but worse. He's horrible. I like Carson Edwards coming out of Purdue. He held Purdue going a big run in the tournament a couple years ago. But he's fallen off. He's fallen off. So he's tradable. He's a tradable piece. Aaron Nesmith was from this year's draft. I think he's a tradable piece. There's a bunch of tradable pieces on this team that hopefully a majority of them are gone. They're traded somehow, whether it's this season or in the offseason. But in any case, yeah, there's a bunch of guys on this team, most notably Kemba Walker, that need to be traded. They need to be traded. Or just released, like Jeff Teague. Jeff Teague just needs to be released right now.
I would say that
there's out of the locker room already.
7 guys on this roster right now that we could trade, and we'll either be A-okay without them, or we could get better without them by trading them. And I was so surprised that the Celtics took Aaron Nesmith in this draft. I really was. I wish that they bundled up those picks and try to move up a little bit and get someone more important or whatever, because I don't know about you, and I probably would think you'd feel the same way. Do you want 3 players that are like a B rating, argument's sake, B rating, or would you rather have one player that's an A rating? I want the A-rated guy. What's that?
That's exactly why I wanted to happen. I wanted the 3 first-round picks this year to be traded to the Bulls, along with Semi Ojeleye for whatever first-round pick they had, and they were going to use that pick on Obi Toppin.
Oh, dude, Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's playing so nice for the Knicks. Have a good young core, and that's what the Celtics should be having with Brown, Tatum, and then you look at Robert Williams, Peyton Pritchard, and last year's draft class. That's what the Celtics should be, but they're not, because that's an indictment on Danny Ainge for poorly drafting players or, poor asset management by, trading those 3 first-round picks. Even if you move up a few spots, even if you just move up a few spots, that's still better than having 3 of these bench warmers, really.
Yeah, they traded their 3rd first-round pick. They traded that away for, I think, picks next year or a pick later in the draft.
It's like what are you doing, Danny? Like,
and the draft this year, they needed to attack the big position, and they took guards.
It's like they want Taco Fall to take the next step for them. It's like, I don't know.
As much as I love Taco Fall, he's just nothing. Well, I don't know why he's still on this team. I will say, last year, his first game of the season, I was at. And it was electric, dude. I'm telling you, the entire crowd wanted him in. I'm sure you've seen it. And just being a part of that, and then he finally got in. It was electric. Other than that, though, I'm done with him too. Yeah, well, I wouldn't say I'm done with him. It's just that there's really no need for him to be here. But who knows? Maybe he could be a piece on a young team that needs to bring in ad revenue. So they need fans, and it'll be Taco Fall that they come looking for.
Have taco shirts.
Taco Tuesday.
Taco time.
Yeah, there's much marketing ploys that we could come up with right now for Taco that another team could use. But in any case, the Celtics are absolute mess this season. They need to just stop, forget the season, and move on, and get rid of Jeff Teague. Number 1 priority actually right now.
Get rid of Jeff Teague. This man doesn't miss with the get rid of Jeff Teague movement.
It's just like Grant Williams. Whenever Jeff Teague steps on the court, my soul leaves my body, but faster than if Grant Williams was to step on the court.
So you'd rather keep Grant Williams over Jeff Teague?
Sure, because he's young. Grant Williams is younger.
Fair enough.
Maybe they haven't blown him up yet. But yeah, Jeff Teague, it was good the first game of the season, and it looked like a good signing when they first got him. But other than that, he's been awful. Worst.
I'd rather just see Carson Edwards and Tremont Waters get those minutes, to be honest. I mean, I know we kind of just
give it
bashed,
to the young guys.
the
Give it
draft
to the
picks,
young
but
guys.
you have to give it to the young guys. I mean, what is Jeff Teague really going to do for the Celtics team? Bring a little bit of experience? All the playoff experience he has are L's. I mean, all those years with the Hawks, L after L. I mean, you bring in Kemba Walker. What kind of playoff experience does he have?
None.
One series
Worse.
against LeBron.
Worse than Jeff Teague.
So it's like, if you're going to go out there and get someone with playoff experience, go out there and get like a veteran, someone
Harrison
that's
Barnes.
like Harrison Barnes.
That's who I want.
Why?
He's going to be the veteran leader. He'll be the veteran guy that they can bring in. It would be the Gordon Hayward TPE, and definitely a bunch of other guys.
What experience does he have except that 1 year with the Warriors?
Maybe that's enough because he at least had a championship.
Okay, right? Fair enough. And championship, obviously, in the NBA means so much. It means so much. But
plus, he's having a decent season.
He is. I was completely against that big contract that he signed years ago for like, it was like a max deal at the time or whatever. And it's like, he's not worth it.
$85 million.
Yeah, but now obviously with the salary cap moving up, it's definitely much more reasonable. And now that you have that trade exception, it can work. It can absolutely work. And you know what? If the Celtics are going to make that push, like we kind of mentioned, they should do it. They should do it. I wouldn't mind it. He's another scorer. He's another wingman. He can, stretch and play the four. He can go up and play the two.
Is something that you need to address the wing also. There's so many positions that you need to address. Like, it's insane.
All
Bigs,
five.
Wing, just all five. Plain and simple, all five positions is what you need to address and
do something.
Yes. Yeah. So yeah, I like Harrison Barnes. I want Harrison Barnes. And that's like a lot of hype. That's a lot of hype and rumors around the league are Harrison Barnes and the Celtics.
I wouldn't mind that. I really wouldn't, because he brings a lot of good things to the table that maybe Tatum or Brown can't do. I mean, he has that championship, even though he was young with the Warriors, but that means something in the NBA. That really does. And if you can kind of package all that up, have Tatum, Brown, and Barnes, now you got yourself a little big three right there. You have yourself a good core, a nucleus right there to really mold the rest of your team around with Time Lord and then Smart. If you move on from Pritchard, it just really helps, the ball rolling, and it'll show us Celtics fans that the Celtics are serious about this season and about making noise this season, winning a finals this year, though they probably won't.
Yeah.
But at least it's still a notion of trying.
The future. If there's not a finals appearance, at least within the next 4 years, then I'd say the Celtics fans are going to be heated. Beyond, probably more pissed than they are this season.
Yeah.
Because you're almost going to be wasting away the whole contracts of Jaylen Brown and Jason Tatum. And in today's league, if you aren't successful, guys are going to want to leave.
Oh, the players control that league so much. If a player wants to be traded, they'll get traded.
They'll get traded.
And that's honestly not how it should be. But I understand, if they hate it at a place, hey, I want to get traded. They'll get traded. It's just that simple. And we don't want to see Brown and Tatum get to that point. We want to see other players get to that point and want to come here.
Yeah. So within 4 years, you need at least a finals appearance. And if not, things are not going to be good. They'll not be pretty. And you could fall back to your 2013 Celtics team and be like that for a number of years.
I mean, if they're not going to make the finals or make any noise, then might as well, right? I mean, what else is there to look forward to besides hitting the reset button, trading away everybody that's not named Brown or Tatum, and just kind of hoping for the best? Well, I guess in your case, you love Marcus Smart, and I do too. So everyone who's not traded, who's not named Brown, Tatum, and Smart, get out of here.
And Rob Williams. Rob Williams is untouchable.
Time Lord. Dude, he needs way more time than he's getting. He really does. He is the focal point of our defense. Him and Smart are brick walls.
Yeah. Yeah, I love Rob Williams. I think he's the future.
He's finally grown into the player that we expected him to be a couple years ago when we drafted him. And it honestly feels so good. Absolutely. It feels so good.
I feel like just watching him now, it makes me feel like we have almost like a certified superstar, pretty much. The big plays that he makes, the big dunks, the lobs to Rob. I mean, all of that. It gives you a good feeling that this guy is going to be something. This guy is going to be something.
And
And
that's
that's what you want.
And that's what we want. And that's all we need from him, too, is just to be in the paint, whether it's dunking, alley oops, blocking shots, defending the rim. That's all we're not asking him to be a stretch five. God, no. But as long as he can do everything that you just said and everything that he should be doing, he can be a legitimate force at center.
Absolutely.
And to finally say that as a Celtics fans, that feels so good because for years upon years, we haven't had a real center. I mean, Kevin Garnett was a power forward, but he had to play the five. If you want to call a 36-year-old Shaquille O'Neal the last legitimate center the Celtics had, so be it. But Robert Williams, he feels like it, and it feels good.
Yeah, definitely. So I love Rob Williams. I love Pritchard. I love Smart. Other than that, I mean, there's a bunch of pieces that need to go. Starting with Jeff Teague, and then Kemba Walker, and then Grant Williams.
What about Tristan Thompson?
Oh yeah, that's a good guy. Or actually not a good guy, but a good point. Yeah, no, he should be traded. He's okay. He's an okay player, but he should be traded. And I'm not saying he should be traded like how Kemba Walker should be traded or anyone else should be traded. He needs to be traded because he will bring value to another team, and we really don't need him. We really don't need him. He was good. He's a decent guy this season. He still has some game left in him. But other than that, yeah, he would be a good fit somewhere else.
He doesn't fill the need that he's a undersized center, and that really doesn't cut it that much in the league anymore. Yes, he can go out and kind of guard the perimeter where everybody can shoot threes nowadays, but just have Tice go do that. If you're going to have, an undersized center, just have Tice do it, and then have Rob Williams as the big man, the legitimate big man. Because Tristan Thompson, that money can go towards something else. I mean, he's almost making 10 million, 9 million, whatever it is. That money can be much more efficient elsewhere. Trade Thompson, trade Teague, use that money plus the TPE if you want to go in this year and go get yourself a legitimate player. Obviously, if that's not the case, then, I don't know why they're here. I mean, I really don't.
I mean, it was a good signing. It was a good sign to get Tristan Thompson, but as the season has gone on, obviously it's not working out. So he's a tradable piece that you really should get rid of. You really don't need him. You can find somebody else that will be just as effective. So yeah, Tristan Thompson should be traded. One more guy actually that I wanted to quickly get to.
Okay.
Jason Tatum. How have you liked him this season? I feel like he's been a little underperformed.
I feel like because of the explosion that he had last year before COVID, and then obviously after COVID, once the playoffs kind of rolled around, I think that success has kind of ballooned him a little bit and got into his head. So he thinks he's bigger than he is. Like he's looking for all those superstar calls that, LeBron James gets. He doesn't make players around him better, which you want from your best player. Like if you put LeBron on any team, they're an immediate finals contender because LeBron makes everybody around him better. You could say the same thing about Curry and Durant.
Yeah.
Tatum thinks he's at that level, but he's not. He doesn't make the rest of the team around him better. And that's the one knock I have on him. Other than that, his play statistically I like, but the effort and just, the other intangibles I see on the court, I think are lackluster.
Yeah, I'm right there with you when you mentioned the fouls and he looks for the superstar fouls. That's the biggest thing that I hate about him. He should know this by now that he's too young. He's not as experienced as those superstars who get all the calls. He's not going to be getting that just yet. Maybe in a couple of years when he wins his first MVP, but not now. And I want him to understand. I want him to understand that so badly. Like it hurts. It hurts, but he just can't. And it's really the one thing that I don't like about Jason Tatum. Other than that, I love his play. Some nights he's good, some nights he's not. I mean, you can say that for just about everyone on this team. Some nights they're good, some nights they're not. And it's really the only thing that you can say about most of these players on the team.
Yeah. I love the progression that he's made every single year. Like when he first got into the league, when we had Kyrie, I mean, Kyrie was the guy, but when Kyrie was injured, Tatum stepped up and he became that guy for the Celtics against, the Cavaliers in that Eastern Conference Finals. he was the guy, and he's grown every single year since then. But I think like we've said, he thinks he's one of those guys, the superstars, the LeBron, Curry's, Durant's, but he's not there yet. Could he get there? Absolutely. 100% could easily get there. But for now, dude, just go to the rack, go hard. If you get the foul, you get the foul. If not, don't complain about it. Go back and play some defense. That's how you make the rest of your team better, by leading by example. And if you want to be a leader on this team, you have to do the right thing when it doesn't come to points. I mean, look at Marcus Smart. He puts his body out there every single night. He leads by example. Obviously, his offensive game is a completely different story, but defensively, he leads by example. He makes everyone else around him better when it comes to defense. Tatum needs to do the same thing offensively. And I don't think he's just there yet. Like, the Celtics don't have a legitimate ball handler, a legitimate playmaker for others, like a true point guard, like a Rondo or something. He passed the ball to the big three, generated shots for them. If Tatum, I don't want to have to say if Tatum was that guy, but if we had that guy, I think Tatum's game would take another step. But until then, I'm more happy with who he is right now than I'm upset with him, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. You did remind me of the hustle, and that's actually the second thing that I don't so much hate about him, but dislike about him. There was one play, I can't put a game and quarter to it, but something happened on the offensive side of the ball, and Tatum wasn't happy about it, and he just slowly jogged down the court. As he slowly jogged, whoever they were playing, they blew right down the court to the rim and scored. And I think it was Tatum's guy that he should have been guarding, but he took his time because he wasn't happy with the official. Mm-hmm. You're too young, and you should not be doing that by now.
Yeah, and you'll see Tatum lose the ball or throw a bad pass, whatever, and he'll just sit there, throw his hands up, bend over, and be in disgust. It's like, dude, just get back on defense, make it up that way. If you miss a shot, if you turn the ball over, make it up on defense, get a steal. I mean, you lead the team in steals. You have the defensive capability. Go do it. Go do it.
Yeah, definitely. But who knows? Hopefully he'll smarten up, and I want him to smarten up. I want so much to change with the Celtics. It's insane. I hate the Celtics so much.
Yeah, they win a few games, they give you hope, and then they'll lose a few games, and it's just like, bro, now we're 500, 40 games in.
A lot of people got so hyped up over those 4 wins in a row before the All-Star break.
Mm-hmm.
They were all at home. They were all against inferior opponents who were struggling with injuries or something. Like, of course, you're going to win those games. As bad as you have been, you were going to win those games. You're a good home team, but you're awful on the road.
Yep.
So I wasn't as hyped up over those wins as everyone else, but people just need to realize there are too many fanboys for the Celtics. They take every little good thing and blow it up into a big reason.
And they refuse and reject the bad. They're like, oh, no, they'll just bounce back. I mean, look, they played the Kings, the Magic, and it was the Grizzlies in the next 3 games. They have to win all 3 of them. It's plain and simple. At this point in the season, every game is probably a must-win game, to be honest. But if you can't beat the teams you are supposed to beat, then how do you expect to beat the teams that are better than you?
Exactly. Exactly.
I mean, you play Milwaukee. That 4th game next week is against Milwaukee. In Milwaukee, if they lose any of those 3 games prior, I have no hope and faith that they'll win that game. But if they can win those 3, then you can kind of, convince yourself a little bit like, hey, they'll have a chance at least, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Celtics, they're an absolute fucking mess, and hopefully they turn it around. But not this season, during the off season.
Next year.
I'm moving on to next year. All right.
2021, 2022.
Yeah, hopefully that'll be a good time. All right, let's switch gears. I want to get over to the Bruins now. Boston Bruins, a team that is also a little bit underperforming.
That's right an now, understatement.
This season, they're 15-8 on the season, or 15-8-4 on the season. They're in 4th place in the East. They're struggling. They're struggling as of late. A lot of people think that they're the chance they can miss the playoffs. Which I don't believe that just right now. They have to struggle for a lot longer than this for me to think that they're going to miss the playoffs.
I feel the Bruins are in a very similar situation that the Celtics are in, but just in a slightly better spot. They're on the cusp
Yeah,
of the playoffs and not making the playoffs. They'll lose a couple games that they should win, and then they'll win a couple games that they maybe not so shouldn't win. But they're still playing very well. They're still putting in the effort. I think the biggest difference between the two teams is that the Bruins play with heart and effort.
exactly.
Celtics don't. One thing I love about the Bruins is that they have leadership. They have a great core of veterans and they have a really good young core of young players, which could really, develop and push them into the playoffs. It's really hard this year because you're playing all the same teams throughout the entire season. So you lose one or two games to a certain team, that could really impact you in terms of the standings. That's why all four divisions are doing this, but every team is bouncing up and down super quickly and super fast. The Capitals, I mean, they're kind of separating themselves a little bit from the rest of the pack. The Islanders are right behind them. Bruins and the Penguins, I don't think we'll have a chance to catch them. But as long as the Bruins beat the teams that they should and, scrape any points that they can from, the upper echelon of teams of the division, I think they'll be okay. I really do. I mean, they've played better as of late. They're 4-4-2 in their last 10. I think when I last talked about them on Monday, they were like 3-6-1 or something like that, which is not acceptable. But at least 4-4-2 gives you a little bit of hope that there's better days for the Bruins. And the season is coming to an end very quickly for them.
Yeah,
This is
not
the
much
year.
longer.
This is the year for the Bruins. It really is. I mean, you can only expect that the veterans can only go so long, and you have a really good team around you. They have to make it happen this year. They need to go out and make a trade similar to what I think the Celtics should do.
Yeah, no, definitely they need to make a trade soon because the East is getting a little out of hand. As long as they can solidify at least third with the hopes of maybe second place once the season ends, then I'll probably be a little happy with them. But yeah, right now they're not playing to where they should be. I really think that a big reason why is because of the injuries. They're down Tuukka Rask. He's been gone for a while. Kevin Millar, when he was playing incredibly well, and he hasn't played in over a year. Brandon Carlo, we saw what happened with him with Tom Wilson.
Awful.
Yeah, I hate Tom Wilson. I haven't liked him for a long time, and I mean, he doesn't understand it more than a lot of people saying Brad Marchand's still a dirty player. I mean, let me tell you about Tom Wilson.
Story time.
Tom Wilson is the dirtiest player probably the league has ever seen. I mean, I don't know much about history. It's like maybe there was somebody dirtier than him back then.
Before rules were a thing.
Yeah. I mean, he just doesn't understand it. And he knows what he's doing every time, every game that he goes out there and hurts a guy, just like what happened with Brandon Carlo. But yeah, they're down a bunch of guys, and hopefully once they all come back, if they can come back, they'll start performing again because they need them back. Like, you're playing a lot of guys who should be in the AHL. I don't know them off the top of my head, but in any case, some of them really should not be playing right now. They're too young. We actually saw Dan Vladar the other night in his first start with the Bruins. He had an insane game, going for 34 saves on 35 shots, making that insane stick save.
Beautiful save.
Yeah. He could possibly be the future goaltender for the Bruins. Spend a couple of years behind Tuukka and Halak, get that experience, and then he'll come in. He'll become more of a backup, and then he'll move. Just like Tuukka, he'll be the backup, and then he'll move to the starting position.
One thing that I liked about Vladar's game the other night is the last time we saw him was in the playoffs last year, where he got
absolutely
torched.
Torched.
Yeah. And it's like, you can't really expect much from the guy who just got called up to be the backup to Halak after Tuukka opted out. And he was thrown into the fire against a really incredible Tampa Bay Lightning team, obviously. So there was not much he could do about it. But then the next time we see him, he comes back and has a game like this. Wow. That was very nice. Could be a fluke. I don't think so. I think he has a lot what it takes. And with both Halak and Rask's contract up at the end of the season, are you really going to pay Tuukka? Maybe, maybe not. But I'm sure you could pay Halak, a cheaper contract, and then have Halak and Vladar be your goalies, and then Vladar, take over after that. Because as it stands right now, I think paying goalies are just obnoxious. I really do. And Tuukka is I still think one of the best goalies in the league. At least a
Definitely.
top five. Honestly, when he's hot, when he's right, he's a top five goalie. But that's so far and
Definitely.
few in between nowadays. But what I see from Vladar, that was kind of nice. I mean, yes, it was one game, and I hope we can see plenty more of it. I really do, because he could be the guy, like you were saying, get a little bit of mentorship, a little bit of tutoring. He could be your next goalie for the next 10 years. I mean, look at Tuukka Rask. He was the next goalie for the 10 years.
Yeah. You did mention how both Halak and Rask were up at the end of the season. So I would actually more expect Rask to resign and for Halak to probably not resign because Halak cannot go game after game be a starting goaltender. He just can't. He hasn't done it in years.
Mm-hmm.
And even for the last number of seasons that he was the starting goaltender, he struggled. He really struggled. So I'd expect Halak to walk, or I'd expect Halak not to resign, Rask to resign, and Vladar maybe to be promoted to backup. But because we saw last in the offseason last season, or in the postseason last season, when Rask left, Halak came in, and he struggled having to go game after game of
Yeah, he couldn't do it.
trying. Yeah, I mean, he hasn't done it in a long time. He has experience in the playoffs, though. He went on a good run with the Canadians, I think like 10 years ago, making it to the East Finals. And he was a big reason why they made it back that far. But he can't do it anymore. And so he's a solid backup, a really solid backup, and a team who's on the cusp of maybe making the playoffs or the finals, whatever it may be. He would be a good backup that you can go to if the starting goaltenders to go down.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, I love Vladar. I'm throwing out that playoff game where he was again getting absolutely beaten down by the Lightning. I'm throwing that out. This was his first game. This was his first start. This was his first appearance on Tuesday. And everything from here on out is the career for him. That first game doesn't count. But
No, go ahead. Finish your thought.
no, I was done.
Oh, okay. I really like your point how we just kind of throwing out the Vladar thing, and it's so hard to hold it against him because like that wasn't, if he started that game, could have been different, sure. Could have not have been, could have been worse, sure. But like we already lost that game. So we were trying to save Halak. And although Halak did have his nice games in the playoffs once he became the starter, but you're right, he couldn't do it. And say we do move on from Rask, we keep Halak and Vladar. Do we really trust ourselves to go with Vladar and Halak, on back-to-backs and then, throughout the rest of the season? No, because neither of them
Not at
are
all.
top-tier goalies. Tuukka Rask is. But what kind of price tag is Tuukka Rask gonna want in terms of, I haven't looked at the salary cap for the Bruins, but what kind of money is he gonna bring in when he is either a lights out goalie or he can sometimes be a puddle and dribble all over himself against the Canadians when they, play them next year or whatever, when the season's back to normal.
Yeah.
A lot of questions for the Bruins come the off season in terms of who they bring back, who they try to sign. I really don't think the Bruins are good at drafting players. So how are you going to bring more talent? And you get obviously sign players, but when you're so tight up against the cap, and if you do dedicate all that money to Tuukka, where is that going to leave you for the rest of your roster? Because you have other holes to fill elsewhere. Your top four, your top six, your forwards. It's going to be tough and it's going to be challenging. And you let Zdeno Chara go, and now you're struggling with defensive depth.
No,
Now,
that was a good move. That was a good move.
no,
Let
I
Chara
agree with it.
go.
I agree with it. It was a good
All right,
move to
good.
get rid of him. But when you're looking at it in hindsight, it's like, oh, wow, we could have used someone like him right about now because we're so dinged up. And that all goes back to having depth on your roster and filling out other spots on your roster. I like the idea at the beginning of the season to go with the younger core of defensive players and
Definitely.
let Chara walk. It was sad, it was upsetting, but it was the right business move for the Bruins. But now, looking at hindsight with all these injuries, it's like we need some of that depth back and we don't have it. What are the Bruins going to do moving forward as they kind of, struggle through the season right now, being dinged up? And when they get healthy, could they turn it on then? But how long are we going to have to wait till they turn it on?
Yeah, but I mean, you really can't predict injuries happening.
Oh,
So,
absolutely.
so I'm still okay with Chara leaving. I feel like I'm not going to regret it as much as I loved him, having brought all the success to the Bruins. As much as I loved him for that, it was a good move, and they won't regret it. Going
Mm-hmm.
with young guys, I mean, some of them are really showing up. Trent Frederick, I love Trent Frederick. he has a future ahead of him with the Bruins.
He will go out and fight anybody. That's
Exactly.
so awesome to watch. That's
And
the
he's
kind of
young.
fire you need from your defenders.
Yeah. We saw it against the Capitals. He tried to fight Ovechkin, and Ovechkin was pretty much like, "You don't want smoke.
You don't
You
want the
don't want the
smoke,
smoke."
young
But he's not
buck.
afraid. But he knows what he's going up against. He's not
Mhm.
afraid of that. So I love Frederick. Charlie Coyle, he's not even a defenseman. Never mind. I was thinking of Charlie McAvoy.
Yep.
Charlie McAvoy, he's up for whatever the award is. He's like a potential finalist for like defenseman of the year, pretty much. He's been playing really well this season. Bunch of these defensemen. Grizzly, he's been okay. Yeah, I got the list right here. Why am I not reading it? Jeremy Lauzon, not great. Connor Clifton, not great. Kevin Millard, he's been hurt. All right. So everyone I just mentioned isn't doing that well.
What about Jared Tenorti, the guy that the Bruins brought in like a week or so ago? I was thinking to myself, I was like, this is just a depth move just to get a body out there, obviously, because the injuries were starting to pile up. And then after Brandon Carlo went down in Tenorti's second game, he's already out there fighting Tom Wilson. I was like, this is what the Boston Bruins is all about: heart, passion, and throwing your body out on the line. And in his just second game, and probably knowing Carlo for probably 48 hours, he's already out there, trying to beat Wilson's ass and make up for it, losing probably our second best defenseman. And that's what we need from everybody if we're going to make any kind of noise in the playoffs with the roster that we have. Because I'm not too certain if the Bruins are going to make any moves come the deadline, even though they should.
They need to.
They need to. But if they don't, let's just say for argument's sake, they don't. Well, we're going to need players that have the passion and heart that we saw from Tenorti and obviously your other veteran players to go out there and fight anybody, because, when it comes to playoffs, it's just you against them. Yeah. And you got to be bigger and stronger.
So when the signing first went down, I was a little worried because coming out of Nashville, he hadn't been that great.
He did nothing.
I guess you can say he was a bust pretty much. But my opinion on him has changed. It seems like he's playing like he's been here for years. He's playing like he's been here for years. He's standing up for his team. And like you said, that's Boston Bruins hockey, standing up for your team. It's all about the team. So that's good. And I'm now happy about the signing, or really the claim, because they took him off waivers.
Yeah.
I'm now happy about it. I think it was a good move. And maybe he'll work out. Maybe he'll work out here. He hasn't had a point yet in the 8 games that he has played in. But that soon could be changing. That could soon change. And maybe he'll be here for the next couple of years. He'll mesh well. He'll fit in. I'd like to see that. I would like to see, and who knows? Maybe
he's a massive body for us. Yeah. He's like 6'6", 6'7", or something like that. Like really intimidating figure. And a bunch of these young guys, they don't have that kind of frame. So having that big guy, that big frame back there, is all about that.
230.
What is it?
6'6", 230.
Yeah, so he's a big boy.
Years old.
He's a big boy. Plus you're on 3-inch skates or whatever. So now he's like 6'9". It's an intimidating factor. And, it does suck that he doesn't have a point. So he's not really contributing. And he's a -2 on the ice. So it's like, what kind of value is he bringing besides just pretty much a boxer?
Yeah, not much, but maybe things are going to change once he really starts understanding his team more. Because they got a couple games coming up against the Sabres, who are awful. So maybe he'll find something during these few games.
The whole team needs to find something in these next couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, you're going up against the Sabres tonight, actually, and so you hopefully will turn it around and get some momentum going, because you're playing the worst team in the league, and it's a great opportunity for them to, find something, find some connections, offensively and defensively. So yeah, these are as crazy as it is to say a game against the Sabres is a big game. It really is a big game. It really is a big game, because there's a lot of factors that the Bruins need to work on. Hopefully they'll find it during these next couple of games.
Absolutely. And I think the rest of the month, I mean, looking at the schedule, they got 2 against the Sabres, 2 against the Islanders, another game against the Sabres, and then 2 against the Devils. I really think the rest of this month is massive, because 5 of those games are against bum teams, and then you're playing 2 against, a really good Islanders team who obviously beaten you plenty of times. if they can walk away with 11 or 12 points out of that, holy smokes, dude, we're going to be right back in it because
Yeah.
they're only 3 games out of third place right now, but they've played 2 less games than the Penguins. So say they win both of those games, that's 4 points right there. And now they're vaulted into third place. It's so funny how hockey works because it works completely different than any of the other sports, how they work off a point system and not just necessarily wins. One of the reasons why I love hockey because it is different than just, win-loss. So making up those 2 games with 2 wins, that's 4 points. Now they're in third place. But if the Bruins can go on a stretch, like you were mentioning, how, this game against the Sabres tonight is going to be kind of big for us. I mean, it's an away game. The next 2 are obviously away in Buffalo against a terrible team. Say you win both of them, gives you a little momentum to go into the Islanders game because that's going to be an important series right there.
Yeah.
Obviously, because
You
they're
haven't beaten them yet. You haven't beaten them
exactly.
yet
And
this
it's like,
season.
say you run into them in the playoffs, you got nothing going well for you. So that's why I think this is such an important next couple of weeks, the rest of the month, because you're playing against bad teams in the Sabres and Devils, but you got 2 important games crammed in the middle against the Islanders, who you haven't beaten, who you haven't really shown much of anything against. I mean, maybe that one shootout loss the other day, or last week, I should say. This is a
Yeah.
massive time for the Bruins right now. And if they're going to do anything, I think it starts with here because then you look into April, you got the trade deadline, April 12th.
The season ends not much longer after that.
Exactly. So the Bruins got to show us something if we want to like really buy in and believe, because the Bruins are probably the one team in all of Boston that is the closest to winning a championship. And if you look at the standings right now, you would think not, but they kind of are.
Yeah.
They kind of are when you consider everything else.
The players, the development, the connections, the experience. We've made it to the finals not long ago. We can easily make it back again and win another cup.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, I want to expect it. I'm going to expect it. I expect it more than any other team. Maybe the Sox in a few seasons, they're building something special. They got actually a bunch of good young guys. They could win something or compete at least because it's still in the rebuild. But other than that, yeah, the Bruins are definitely going to be the first team to win a championship.
And we're looking at the Bruins right now in the standings, just like I said, off the rip. They're in the 4th spot, only 3 points ahead of the Flyers from being out of the playoffs. But I'm okay with that. Like I feel okay with where the Bruins are right now because of everything you just said. They have the players, they have the experience, they got the connections, they have the young core. So I feel good about this the Bruins right now. But if you look at the Celtics, who are a game and a half back from being the 4 seed, I don't feel comfortable with that. I really don't.
Not at
And
all.
it's the time for the Bruins. They were there just a couple seasons ago against the Blues when they lost. A lot of those players are back. So a lot of those players have that experience. It's a COVID riddled year. So really anything can happen. And come playoffs, any team can get hot. I mean, we've seen countless times where low seeds in the hockey playoffs have made big noises. Hopefully that's not the Bruins, but hopefully they do make that big noise as a at least a middle of the pack seed.
Yeah, the playoffs in the NHL are so much different than the NBA because in the NBA, if you're the good team, if you're the team that's favored to win, you're going to win.
Absolutely.
If in the NHL, anything goes. You could be the 8 seed, having never won a playoff series in your franchise's history, going up against probably the team that tied the league record for points in a season, and that 8 seed could win, like we
Easily.
saw a couple of years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So
It's the hockey playoffs are so unpredictable, and that's why it makes it so exciting, especially when you get into overtime games, golden goal. It's every sport has its own little niche in terms of excitement and entertainment. I think hockey has one of the best versions of that because game 7 tied up overtime. It's like you give up one more goal and your season's over. But if you score one, you're raising a cup. It's like, whoa, all right. And like you said, 8 seeds can easily beat 1 seeds. It's just all about who's hot at the right time. And that's why it's so important for the Bruins to, the rest of the month right here is to get hot and build some momentum as we look towards April, the trade deadline, and the rest of the season after that.
Yeah.
It's an exciting time to be a Bruins fan right now. And like I said, I feel okay with where they're at right now because I'm very hopeful and optimistic of what's to come.
Yeah. I'm not at all worried. I could be if things don't go well for a little longer, but yeah, playoff hockey, the best playoffs out of the 4 major sports is hockey. And yeah, I think the Bruins. This is actually something I want to quickly bring up. So last year during the playoffs, when they played the round robin games, I was not a fan of that. I wanted them to
stupid.
They should have gone out there and get that 1 seed, because if you're the 1 seed, I mean, technically you'll have an easier road to success.
Home team.
But yeah, exactly. But obviously they didn't. I would have loved to have seen them get the 1 seed, even though like you're still gonna make the playoffs. You're just gonna get a lower seed. It doesn't matter. Like, you're gonna get the 1 seed. You'll have some advantages, and it'll look good. It'll look good to see who you're going up against, a weaker opponent. You'll make it farther. So I really wasn't a fan of that, and that's something that I hope the Bruins will learn from, to always try. You always gotta try. As if you're a contender, like the Bruins are, not the Celtics, you always have to try. If you're a good team in championship contention, you always gotta try. If not, then yeah, forget the season. Just like the Celtics.
And like
I will not let the Celtics go. That's how upset I am with them.
No, and you shouldn't at all, and you shouldn't at all, because if the Bruins have a terrible stretch for the next couple of weeks, then they're in the same spot as the Bruins are. And if we're gonna bag it for the Celtics, I mean, we absolutely need to have that conversation for the Bruins if they don't perform like they should. And that whole round robin thing was stupid last year. I mean, they were in first place by like 9 games, and they had to play a round robin to see who's going to be the top 4 seeds. Absolutely atrocious.
NHL has been really a mess for a while, and Bettman doesn't really know what to do. Although it was really a smart idea to get ESPN a DV deal that they did.
Oh, that was a massive deal.
Yeah, it's smart. It's really going to grow the game.
Exactly, especially with another hockey team coming in next year too. I mean, a ton of good things are happening in hockey. I mean, it's the best pure sport, I think. It's such a fluid game. There's not a lot of, argument from, players wanting fouls or anything, or penalties.
If a player is upset with another player, they drop their gloves.
Exactly. It's the only sport you can fight in. And it's like, I know the NHL wants to kind of outlaw it because of player safety and all that, but you can't. It brings so much excitement to a game. It completely changes the momentum. If you're down a goal or whatever, it's just a part of the game, and it makes hockey. Exactly. It makes it not a bitch sport.
It's a physical sport. You put your body up there, you are going to get hurt. You're going to lose a tooth. You're going to get beat up.
That's what you sign up for.
Yeah, you're still going to go back out there and play because you know that you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Unlike NBA, where if you get blatantly tapped in the arm, you're out for the rest of the game. Yeah, it's a mess. But in any case, I'm not worried about the Bruins.
No,
not at all. All right. I mean, go.
I was just gonna say they're the closest team to win a championship. So
Definitely.
I mean, this is it. This is it, because we can't really bank on the Patriots or the Red Sox as of now. And the Celtics, we're already calling for they're next for the end of this season. So it's the Bruins or bust. It's the Bruins or bust.
Definitely, and it's really the smart thing to say if you're a Boston sports fan. It's the Bruins or a lot longer for another team.
Mm-hmm. So what'd you guys think? What did you think of part 1 of Shawn and I's collaboration episode? I thought it was awesome. To really dive deep into how bad the Celtics are doing, and the Bruins, how we both feel safe and comfortable with where they're at in comparison to the Bruins. Completely different situations, but although the Bruins are kind of lower, I guess in the middle of the pack, for their division, but, they feel like that they're lower because of the difference between, the 1 and the 2 and then the 3 and the 4 seeds. But Shawn and I both feel much, much more comfortable with the Bruins situation than we do about the Celtics. Him wanting to have the Celtics completely tank the rest of the season kind of took me by surprise, but that's just how some Celtics fans feel, and you have to respect that. So, anyways, like I said at the beginning of the episode, this is just part 1, and hopefully you'll be able to listen and join us for part 2 as well. That is airing on Monday. But, as always, until then, until the start of your week on Monday, I will see you later.